Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jacinta Thompson, and I'm the Executive Director and the Events and Exhibitions Producer of the Bob Hawke Prime Ministerial Centre. It is my pleasure to welcome you all here to the Hawke Centre and the University of South Australia. In doing so, I take this opportunity to acknowledge that the University of South Australia is on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land, and we acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. We are thrilled, very thrilled, to be co-presenting tonight's event, The Art of Desistance, Creativity, Culture and Vocational Pathways, with the Department for Correctional Services, and I would like to thank Director Jo McFarland. Where is Jo? Oh, she's outside. Sorry, we're waiting for one of our other guests. Jo, thank you, and her wonderful team, many are here tonight, for their wonderful work on this event. I would also like to acknowledge Ku Arts, who have been working closely with Corrections on bringing this event and the exhibition to fruition, and also to acknowledge those of you in the audience and via live stream who are providing assistance and positive future pathways to those in the criminal justice system. So thank you to all of you who are doing amazing work. I wish to extend a warm welcome to our panellists: Jeremy Ryder, Nicole Dwyer, Cedric Varco, Hayley Mills, Shalom Armand, Tina and Fabian. Thank you to all of you for your time and energy. I would also like to welcome UniSA's Emeritus Professor Rick Saar, who will be facilitating tonight's discussion. The session is being recorded, so this will be available on the Hawke Centre website next week, and I encourage you to bring this to the attention of friends and colleagues who could not join us tonight. We are also live streaming this presentation. We've got over 100 people out there, so welcome everyone, and wonderful to have people who are either locally, regionally and also interstate joining us. And I think we may have some overseas as well, so that's terrific. As we are filming, can I please ask that you switch your phones to silent to avoid interruptions. Following our panel discussion, the Artists on the Inside exhibition in our Kerry Pacific Gallery will be open until 8 p.m. and I encourage you to go and view the artworks after this discussion, and you can go through the middle door there straight into the gallery. It's very easy. Otherwise, the exhibition is open until Thursday the 29th of August. Tonight, our speakers will share their experiences and first-hand knowledge of how the arts can be a catalyst for change, enable healing through storytelling, and offer a beacon of hope for people who are involved in the criminal justice system. It is now my pleasure to welcome Professor Rick Saar, who will introduce our speakers and facilitate tonight's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinta, and welcome everyone who is in this auditorium and also those people who are joining us online for this panel discussion entitled The Art of Desistance, Creativity, Culture and Vocational Pathways. I'll just read you a short little paragraph about where this comes from, and then I'll introduce the panel to you. Now in its 13th year, the annual Artists on the Inside exhibition provides an opportunity for people interfacing with the criminal justice system to share with community their creativity and perceptions through the visual arts. Although we're talking also about broadening that to musical arts, a bit more about that later. It's also an opportunity for artists inside to join other community artists in displaying their work during the Sala Festival. Artists on the Inside is a collaborative piece. Not only is there the Department for Correctional Services, we also have the Bob Hawke Prime Ministerial Centre tonight here, plus Sala, and there's some funding through the Attorney General's Department. We have a terrific panel of speakers. Let me introduce them to you briefly. At the end of that, you can applaud. Here we go. Our first speaker, as I go along the line here, is Dr. Jeremy Ryder, who produced, during his PhD studies, a series of public art exhibitions created in South Australian adult prisons and developed in partnership with the Department of Correctional Services the Adelaide Festival Centre and the Hawke Centre. His research is focused on the impact of state punishment, the creation of criminal identities, and the way people find opportunities to challenge those identities, and creative art is one way in which they do that. Next to Jeremy is Nicole Dwyer, the CEO of WorkSkill Australia. This is a national not-for-profit body which has a strong partnership with DCS, the Department for Correctional Services, delivering what's referred to as the WRRRR, the Work Ready Release Program, an initiative developed under the department's Reducing Reoffending 10% by 2020, by engaging men and women in tailored education and training programs and connecting them with employment services, WorkSkill, for individualised pre- and post-release support. Next in the panel, we have Cedric Varco. Cedric is a contemporary artist, painting the creation stories of his Narrandjeri lands and waters, from the lower River Murray and the lower lakes of the Coorong to the south coast to Kangaroo Island. Cedric was born in Adelaide with strong family connection to Rarakan and Port Pearce. His language groups and tribes are Narrandjeri and Narunga. In this year, he's been conducting painting workshops with men currently in the Mobilong prison, enabling cultural and community connection to be made. Next to Cedric is Hayley Mills. She's the Deputy Chief Executive at the Department for Correctional Services. She's accountable for the strategic development and delivery of statewide operations, including 9 prisons and 15 community correction centres. She co-chairs the department's Reconciliation Action Plan working group and is passionate about progressing the Closing the Gap initiatives. And finally, and I'll get Shalom to introduce our last 2 panellists. Shalom Armand is a filmmaker, and recently, or not so recently, 2016, she documented a group of women participating in the Adelaide Women's Prison Greyhound Adoption Program. The resulting film, Prisoners and Pups, premiered at the 2017 Adelaide Film Festival and was broadcast on ABC2. Shalom then went on to be a finalist and winner of multiple awards, as well as giving a TED talk on that. It was through this project that Shalom was introduced to Nancy Bates, who was delivering singing and songwriting workshops at the prison. And during 2023, Shalom and Nancy joined forces and delivered Songs Inside, a unique project involving women at the Adelaide Women's Prison. And my first question, before I get you to applaud first, will be going to Shalom to tell us a bit more about that. Would you please welcome our panellists? So Shalom, let me go to you straight up to introduce Tina and Fabian. Fabian's not here yet, but Tina is, to tell us something about, maybe about that program, Songs Inside first, and then I might tease out some other questions from that. So to you first, something about the transformative power of that particular process.
Thank you, Rick, for the intro. I am Shalom Armand, documentary filmmaker, and I've got a special guest with me tonight, Tina. I'm thrilled she's able to join us, and we're still waiting on Fabienne, who's a late arrival, and I'm hoping she's going to walk in that door any minute. Thanks for the great intro. As Rick mentioned, I had the opportunity last year to go back inside the Adelaide Women's Prison to work with an incredible singer-songwriter called Nancy Bates. We both met in the Adelaide Women's Prison, actually at the prison art show that was held in this space upstairs. Nancy, unbeknown to me, whilst I was in the prison filming this documentary called Prisoners and Pups, at the same time was also in the same walls of the Adelaide Women's Prison, teaching a group of First Nations women singing and songwriting. And I was invited to come along as a guest at the Prison Art Show exhibition opening, and at that event Nancy was also invited to perform just a couple of the songs that were written inside the prison. And as soon as I heard these incredible songs and words that had been created in that space, I was just like absolutely blown away. Like when Nancy was singing those songs and those words, I felt like the stories of those women were in that room and in that space. So as soon as Nancy finished her performance, I just raced up to her the first chance I got and was like, I'm Shalom, I've been making this film in the prison, you were in there as well, we should meet for a coffee. And we did. And from that coffee hatched an incredible friendship and a connection around our shared experiences of working in the Adelaide Women's Prison. And fast forward to 4 years later, to last year, Nancy and I finally got the opportunity to go back in together to hatch this project called Songs Inside. So it was a project that was nearly 5 years in the making, from that first meeting upstairs at the Prison Art Show to leading us to fast forward to, I'll give it a plug, October 31st, the film will premiere as part of one of the premiere events of the Adelaide Film Festival, and it will be a film screening accompanied by the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra and some of the women participants who were in the prison and now on the outside performing with Nancy and the orchestra as well. So please buy your tickets. But I'm here tonight to speak about, I guess, I come at this conversation from two perspectives. One is being an artist myself and having the privilege to be invited to work in that space, and also being an artist, but as my role as an artist, to observe Nancy and the kind of transformative work that she was able to do in the Adelaide Women's Prison in, I guess, bringing the women's stories in there alive through music and song, and seeing an incredible group of women transform through that experience and come out the other end. And many of those women now, including Tina, are now on the outside, and to see actually firsthand the real impact of the kind of transformation that that program had on someone like Tina. That's probably a good intro and a throw. So to give you a little bit more of the background, Nancy Bates went into the Adelaide Women's Prison and set up an ensemble of 10 women who signed up to engage in a music project that was 4 months of intensive songwriting, learning an instrument, with a culmination in putting on a performance with the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra. Many people expressed interest in wanting to come on board with that project. I think we had like 45 or 50 applications, and all of those applications went through a really strong kind of process around who would be suitable, who had any skills or background in music, and it was a really careful, selected process to come up with the 10 final women who were involved. And I'll throw it to you, Tina, to talk about how you became involved in it and why you signed up and the kind of impact it had on you.
My name's Tina. I was part of this awesome program. I feel absolutely blessed to have been part of it and spend time with these absolutely amazing ladies that came in and just were so consistent with their time and was there for the girls day in, day out, always there. We got to learn the ukulele and train, do teamwork, learn the music and write the songs. More of a release than anything, getting our life on the piece of paper. And Shalom put in a massive amount of time, and Nancy put in huge amounts of time, and just it was an absolute blessing to have them come in and teach us in the prison.
Tell us about the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra.
Most of us girls have never even dreamed about even thinking about seeing an Adelaide Symphony Orchestra. It was just absolutely amazing. And to have our music that we've actually made, the maestro come in and help us with making music to that was just, the end result was amazing.
One reason that I invited Tina to come to speak today to represent the project is that Tina's story is so special and interesting, because Tina actually, prior to this, had a history with music. And so you could speak about how, I think, through this program, like Tina was one of the first women who came along and auditioned to be in the project. And everyone in the room was absolutely blown away by Tina's talent, because you actually have studied music professionally prior to your incarceration.
Yeah, I had studied previously, and I auditioned and they were just blown away. I wrote a song, and the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra helped put music to it, and it was a lot of teamwork, and the girls just get so much drive and passion and ambition out of doing this program, amongst like so many other things. Yeah, it was just fantastic.
This might be an excellent time to have Fabienne into the room, because we're talking a bit about that program. Welcome, Fabienne. Perhaps I can ask Shalom just to introduce something about Fabienne's work.
Sure. This is Fabienne, who was another wonderful participant as part of our project, and perhaps I'll just fill you a little bit. Tina's just been speaking about her experience of being involved in the project in the prison, and I was just going to make a comment that Tina had this incredible previous history with music and was able to re-engage and have that reignited through being involved in Nancy's project. But what has been absolutely incredible for both of these women is that how they've been able to, since become released from prison, to continue to be engaged in the music program and under mentoring from Nancy since they've been released. So perhaps, Fabienne, you can share a little bit more about that aspect.
Something I learned from the music program was it gave me the ability to find myself again, as well as making my family proud again. So that's something I took away from it. And valued a lot, was just being able to regain that trust in my family again, of being able to focus on something that was putting aside of where I was at, and just learning who I was again. So being able to make my family proud again during the music program was something that I valued a lot.
Thank you, Fabienne. What I might do, we'll come back to Tina, Fabienne and you, Shalom, as we develop our discussion tonight, but I do want to come back to Jeremy at this end of the panel to tell us something about the history of the whole idea of artists on the inside. Tell us about how it emerged and what your development was and how you've seen it grow over the last dozen years.
Thanks, Rick, and thanks everyone for coming along. Thanks, Jacinta. I've been invited to speak to you about the exhibition, which will be open after this discussion. And really, I guess the genesis. I just want to make clear that this hasn't been the only public art exhibition program produced. Or of art produced in prison to happen in this kind of state. But these sort of programs start up because I guess there is some kind of energy or idea behind it, and whether it stays up or not is another thing. So at the time when the idea was presented to me that we could do an exhibition of art created in the prison system, there was no art exhibition or program here in South Australia. It was a suggestion made to me by a criminology lecturer at Flinders. I was a student there, and it's been nice to return there as a lecturer in the last couple of years myself. But it was based on an exhibition program developed in the UK by an organisation called the Cursler Trust. It was then called, now called Cursler Arts. They run a really big and I guess powerful annual exhibition program of art created in the English prison system. I went over there in 2011 to volunteer on one of their exhibitions, and I came back and started having discussions with people like Jacinta, who had gallery spaces, with people like Hayley at DCS, with correctional officers who were working and running recreational spaces, with the people in prison who were using those rec spaces to make art and to kind of, sell this idea, and we started in a foyer area. There were just 40 pieces of art. I didn't know if I was going to... It was an open invitation to the people in prison to send art, to me. with the promise that I was going to put it on the wall and invite the public to come and have a look at it. We didn't know if we were going to get any. Thankfully, we got 40 pieces. Yeah, that was in 2012. Fast forward to, I feel like this exhibition, it did start, it was called initially Art by Prisoners. That was a bit of a riff on, and a slightly better name than the Art by Offenders, which is what the Cursler Trust was calling their exhibition program. I ran it from, with the help of a lot of other people, with no money, from 2012 to 2019, and then I feel like the exhibition has a bit of a kind of pre-COVID, post-COVID identity, and then I'm glad it was kind of reborn post-COVID as Artists on the Inside. I love the name. The exhibition this year is fantastic. It's now we are here in a beautiful gallery. It's not in a foyer anymore. It's in a gallery space. There's over 100 works of art, it's really nice to also hear about these other things that kind of happened as a result. And I remember inviting Nancy to sing songs one year at the Omni. I knew she was in the prison teaching and writing songs. I used to produce booklets of creative writing. We used to hand them out at the exhibitions, and I thought, okay, we've just got creative writing, we've got visual arts, and we'll get Nancy in there to play some songs. And I guess you never know what happens when you start these ideas and what connections will happen and how things will evolve. So nice to hear that, maybe it played a role in these other kind of projects, these other creative projects that have happened as a result. So. And
obviously the uptake was immediate. And what was the public reaction to those early years of the art?
Yeah, look, I think that was what, that was a bit of an unknown at first. No one knew, and things can be quite sensitive and fragile in this space. But we were able to. I think the exhibition is managed in a really sensitive way, and every year the public reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. People come, they leave really encouraging comments. If you haven't been to the exhibition, there are sort of these feedback slips that you can get, and that was one of the things that I learned from the Cursler Arts, is that they actually, what they're doing is creating all these opportunities for positive dialogue between those inside and those in the community, and these feedback cards there are one way that you can do that. I've had, I did some research really, my PhD research was around the production of art, the exhibition of that art, and the reception of that art, kind of try to make sense of the whole process. I got some really powerful feedback along the way, including, people that wrote to me and said, they've never ever received such that amount of positive feedback before. Some people didn't really care. They were just like, oh yeah, this was fine. But other people just thought, oh wow, this is,
I have to confess, in a public space, that every now and again you get the little people's choice, you get the little card and a pen. I always give it to someone whose work is terrible, figuring if they don't get some feedback, they'll feel really bad. So I'm confessing that tonight. Let me go to...
You can fill out more than one.
I'll do that tonight. Hayley, let me come to you to talk a bit about the DCS partnership, a bit of a leap of faith for the department, and how you evaluated those outcomes and went ahead with the program.
Thank you. Programs like this are all about partnerships. We certainly can't do anything like this on our own, and so we really acknowledge, initially the partnership with Jeremy, as he described, from very humble beginnings to, sitting here today in the Hawke Centre, and to see, that partnership with the University of South Australia on such a professional stage of where the exhibition's grown is a great example of partnership, and you'll hear from Nicole. Coup Arts was a new addition this year to the exhibition, which has been outstanding. The feedback we've had from the guys, I won't steal your thunder and talk about that, but that's just been such a fantastic addition to the program that puts support and structure and provide guidance behind what it is that the men and women have been working on in the lead up to being able to present their their great work, and also really providing a glimpse into that pathway, that this could be a legitimate vocational pathway as well. And I mean, you only have to hear these incredible ladies speak, and you know, the opportunities that these partnerships bring, which is why when someone like Shalom comes to us and says, I've got this crazy idea, I remember sitting around the conference table, and they'd brought Shalom and a couple of people along and talked about wanting to set up this gigantic stage in the middle of a high security prison and have this many hundreds of people attend the concert, and we need to have this thing set up so that the wind can't interrupt the orchestra, and you know, everything operational says that's impossible. And in that moment we just say, yes, we have to do that. I don't know how, but we have to do that, and that's the reason we have to do that. So, you know, for us, those partnerships are incredibly important. Some of the why around, you know, we increasingly are doing things that, you know, historically might be outside of what people might see as our core function and business. We really believe, and, you know, you talked about evaluation, Rick, I think increasingly the evidence is supporting that there's not one thing. We know that intensive criminogenic programs around offending behaviour are absolutely important, but that is one thread. We also have to be investing in those things that are around wellbeing, that are around hope, that are around you know, people being able to see their identity as something other than a prisoner. We, you know, being able to show and, you know, be part of things like this where we continue to be able to influence community, thinking about identity of people who find themselves incarcerated, and, you know, the pathways out that can best support people. And you know, lots of new features of the program this year that's seen it really expand, as I'm sure some of you have seen who've been up and seen the exhibition. This is the first time this year that artists have been able to put their work up for sale, which is you know, that's a bold step in and of itself for an exhibition like this. But that provides opportunity again to legitimise the work that people are doing and their skills. But also as part of that, we were able to use that mechanism to think about how money can go back into victims of crime fund, etc. So in terms of that reparation and giving back to community as well.
This was a leap of faith, of course, for DCS, which typically would be fairly conservative in its views. What turned the corner in relation to that leap of faith?
I think, as Jeremy described, this started off very small, very humble, very, you know, and we have seen consistently over the years, there is interest in this work, there's value in this work. You know, the engagement from our partners who, you know, want to showcase this work, and, you know, of course, we get every year some of those things around, you know, is there enough punishment? Is there, you know, all those sorts of things, and these just provide platforms to keep having those conversations, to be frank. So we embrace those opportunities, and overwhelmingly the feedback has been very positive.
Well, I want to go to another one of our professional artists here, and that's Cedric. Cedric, you're an artist. Your artistic direction is important to you, your self-expression and self-realisation. Tell us about where your art came from and where it's going. Hayley will find this for you.
Oh,
there you go, perfect.
Deadly. That's a good question that you asked me. I first started off as an artist, you know, going into art more as a profession about 17 years ago. But growing up, my family were all artists in their own right, and they had taught me over the years, and about, main thing was culture, story, connection, belonging, and our own personal connection as a Ngarangiri and a Naranga person. You know, we got our own personal responsibilities to maintain and keep strong and keep country strong as well. And as I travelled as a child, going to these places and being taught about that, being around elders, being around a lot of our community members, growing up in the community, that had always stayed with me. So as being told them stories, I was always fascinated about creating them. And as my mum used to take us down to the beach or down by the creeks when we were kids playing, when we moved from the communities into Adelaide, we used to find the river rocks and things like that, little offcuts of planks of wood we would use to make fire, and then we would sand them up and paint them in order to decorate the house, like make coasters and things like that. And I was always interested with art. I always liked seeing people doing it, and I liked doing it. So as I got older and I became a dad, I was doing that when my children were young in order to connect them, you know, so that we can have this time together to share, but also to pass it on to them as well. And then it actually was at my daughter's kindy, when I lived up north for about 10 years. They've never had an Indigenous person came in and share about culture on an ADOC week or reconciliation week. And they asked me if I knew any stories to come in and to tell. And I said, yeah, I know quite a bit, actually. Quite a few stories I can tell you. And you know, with little 3-year-olds, you know, they don't really have a attention span long enough to really get through to the story. But I told them that, and they really enjoyed it. And they stayed that long that we painted on the big butcher paper, not realising the vast connection that that they had in the community with other sites as well. After that, I actually started getting phone calls regularly to say, can you come on over here, or can you come on over here and share like you did over there? And that had then led me into wanting to become a full-time artist. And before that, it was always something that I just done, either give to family, gift it to them, or something just to pass the time by when we were bored, or you know, on the weekend, you know, by then I've already given up playing football, so never really had any other interest, but art was always my interest, and I just kept going. And it was through that opportunity that led me to do more in the community. Then I seen the need that a lot of younger people were missing out on the opportunities from my generation to this generation now, that some of them never had grown up on country or in community on country. Some of them weren't getting the stories passed to them. Some of them weren't really participating in any cultural activities. When I was asking them, when we were telling stories, none of them knew them. And so I really had then took that and thought, well, how could I give back to my community? And that was a way of giving back to the community, was making sure that we put light on our stories. You know, we come from most beautiful landscapes and areas, and they all got very significant stories to them, and I wanted to share that with all the communities and all the visitors who came to our lands and our waters and visited, and put that on the map. And then I wanted to share that with our young fellows so that they always have a connection to culture and their spirit is strong. Because one thing in our community, when our spirit is not strong, we tend to lead down a path that most of us don't want to go down. And growing up, I was along that path as well. And it was fortunate enough for me that, you know, I had seen potential in art to help me keep busy and keep me out of trouble. But also I had elders who had helped me on my way and helped me create more and given me the responsibility to make sure that our stories and our culture is being shared. now I'm the only male within my family, as my brothers have all passed on now, and so it's my responsibility to make sure that my nieces and nephews, who are my children as well, learn their responsibilities that our family have as our cultural roles that my brothers would have had to do because they were old. I'm the youngest, and making sure that I'm giving it to them so that they'll always carry that and that it'll never be forgotten. And as I'm teaching them, and hoping that that'll also keep them strong into the future too, that their miwi, what we call our miwi, our spirit, our identity, our belonging, it all revolves around that, stays strong. And I've enjoyed that over the years now, professionally as an artist for the last 17 years, but since I was about 8, so for the last 32 years I've been creating or had something to do with in the art, and I've always enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it, and it keeps my spirit strong, keeps my mind clear, and it keeps me out of trouble, and especially because I've got teenagers, it actually makes me turn off from them, and so that when I'm painting I can't hear them, and then they come, Dad, where's this, where's that, and I'm like, oh, what? And never mind, they get upset with me. But even though that I enjoy the time with them, one day they're going to have families of their own, and I want to make sure that they always know it and they'll always be connected with it, so that they got their responsibility into the future when I'm no longer here, to always keep it strong and keep that story to country strong as well.
Thanks, Cedric. Well, I want to take that comment to Nicole to tell us about the work ready, release ready, because it sounds to me like you are right behind this idea of giving some degree of self-expression to people as a way of connecting them to community and to seeing some value in their opportunities. So, Nicole, work ready, release ready, what's been your experience with the take-up of these skills, and what have they added to people who've had lived experience of being inside?
Thanks, Rick. So Work Ready, Release Ready is funded by the Department of Corrections, and Work Skill delivers it across South Australia. So we're in Mobilong, Cadell, Pre-Release, Port Augusta, Women's Prison, Port Lincoln, Mount Gambier, and we follow participants around the prison system. So participants often don't stay in the same place at the same time, and connecting them with services can be challenging. So one of the great things about this program is we follow people through their journey. So we work with people who are most likely to need some help getting a job when they get released. And we start working with people 2 years before they're released. And there's a whole lot of opportunities to do things while you're inside. And we try and, give that hope and encouragement to our participants to say there is life on the other side in terms of work, a career. People have done it before. It's a little scary, but you've got lots of support going through. And our job is to encourage our participants to jump into these great programs. So there's a whole lot of things available around training, industry, but what we love about the art programs that are on offer is it has that great kind of wellbeing kind of touch to it as well. So I should also say we're there when people get out of prison, so we literally pick people up at the gate and if needed, and we work with people to connect them to housing, health, whatever the person needs. We connect them to the right services, and we stay with them till they get a job, and we stay with them till they stay in a job for at least a year. So that's just the whole program from where to go. So we have quite a few of our participants that have their art on display tonight, that have participated in the wonderful concert that was with the ASO, which I had the pleasure to see, best concert I've ever been to. And there's painting, poetry, creative writing, instruments, the works, which is fantastic. And we see that creative outlet is great for wellbeing. It's around, it generates confidence, purpose, enjoyment, And in terms of skills, it's about getting feedback, working as part of a team, and just keeping that confidence and motivation going, which for any work after, you get out, work, job is so important. Our participants, our Aboriginal participants, all say it helps them connect back into culture, their language and spirituality, which is so important while in prison. Probably one of the other side benefits we see from the program is for a lot of the prisoners, they're able to create gifts for their family. And I know it sounds like a simple thing, but being able to give your child or your partner a birthday present that you've made is such a good thing to help you, that prisoner feel like they're still connecting and supporting their family while they're in. I can't tell you how valuable that small thing is for our prisoners. And in terms of where does it kind of land you afterwards, obviously not everyone's going to go out and work in the arts, but we do have a lot of people who do pursue this as a career on the way out. So I had a quick look at our stats before I came in, and we've had 4 participants go on to be artists, and one of the gentlemen who's got their art on display has declared that will be his career on the way out. Photographers, entertainers, writers, journalists, film, television, radio, advertising, marketing, sound technicians. These are all jobs that our participants have gained on release. So again, doesn't mean a career in arts, but there is those pathways. They're all just generally great skills to learn as part of these programs.
And is that more taken up by men or women? What's the women take up?
Both. Obviously, there's, if you look at the proportion of men and women in prison, there's, I think
it's 95-5, I think, is the
maybe 90-10,
accepted number.
maybe around that mark. Yeah, so obviously not as many women in prison, and women don't stay in prison as long. So one of the challenges is connecting women into programs because they often have shorter stays, and making sure we do that. So yeah, it's across the board. Doesn't seem to be sort of a gender, in terms of arts on the way out.
Let me come back to Tina and Fabian as people with lived experience of leaving prison and the uncertainties that entails. Tell us about how this program, be it art or music, artistic expression, helped that process. Tell us a bit about your experience. Perhaps, Fabian, you've got the microphone in your hand. Tell us about that experience, about leaving and having the confidence to do something.
I honestly think it's given me the ability to be able to work in a team again, working in a group and using my communication skills and learning to empathise with other people that are in the group with their daily struggles as well as my own. So it's given me the ability to be able to communicate a lot better than I had been in the past, to voice my struggles, to relate with others and realise how they're overcoming with their struggles as well as my own. So it gave me the strength to be able to realise that voicing my issues was a lot better than suppressing them like I had been in the past. So writing down like with my poetry, with writing lyrics with Nancy and the music and performing gave me that self-confidence to again reconnect with the community as well as with my family and other avenues as well as employment and housing, to be able to give me the self-confidence of being able to walk into a room and feel confident in what I had to say was important. So having that confidence again was a big bonus in my corner as well. So I think that's probably what I walked away with the most from it. So just being able to relate with the girls that were in that music program was, definitely. So I think Tina will be able to agree with that 100%. So
my personal experience was a huge social anxiety, and doing this program with the teamwork and just working together and putting our feelings and everything out on paper it was just a huge release for a lot of us girls. I ended up, the hugest thing to me would have been doing Australia Day. I got to go to Elder Park and sing in front of 25,000 people, which is a huge thing for me because usually I would not be able to speak in front of 10 people without trying to go for the door. And just, yeah, letting go of the social anxiety and pretty much just going for it. Being able to communicate my feelings and not just get flustered and run away. So, yeah, I think that's the best thing I got out of it.
Shalom, what's been your experience in talking with women who are about to have that anxiety of stepping out from the prison walls?
In a weird way, I kind of feel like they're mums because I'm just so beyond proud from meeting these women in those very early days when they were signing up for this project, and then as they've both spoken to, that to see them both on the outside, even though the struggle is real around the kind of challenges that I've seen both of them undergo since becoming released, in terms of what I've seen them achieve in continuing to try to engage with me and this project and with Nancy and her music on the outside, has just been absolutely beyond in terms of, as Tina alluded to, both Fabienne and Tina were invited to perform upon release with Nancy and an orchestra at the Australia Day concert just this year in front of 25,000 people. And on the day that I met Tina, as she spoke, she was struggling to even speak with me alone in a room. That was the level of anxiety. And so even to be able to come here today and be on this stage to speak so openly and honestly and freely about their experiences is just something that could never ever have even happened when I first met them over 12 months ago. So, yeah, even this within itself, and honestly what's to come with this project in terms of once the film is released and the kind of social impact and opportunities that will come for these women, is just, there's no price you can place on that.
Jeremy, let me come back to the last dozen years. I've seen a number of these exhibitions. Can you tell us something about the subject matter of the art? Is there a theme that you'd like to discuss?
I don't know whether there's... Well, I mean, you can probably go up. Every year, the work is different, obviously, and you could probably, go and look at the exhibition tonight, identify themes, but there's a lot of landscapes. There's a lot of... I mean, there's I don't know, there's everything, really. Landscapes, portraits, there's sculpture. I guess when I was kind of looking at it and thinking about the artwork more deeply, though, for my study, I guess I could broadly categorise the artwork into art that explicitly spoke to people's experiences of incarceration, and then art that was about other things that were not incarceration, whether that was kind of, painting a landscape, painting country in order to bring it into, a place that you're, because you're separated from it, or, for example.
A question about First Nations. Tragically, even though First Nations in South Australia are about 2 to 3%, something like a third of our incarcerated men are, and probably about the same for women as well, are identified as First Nations. So of the uptake of people who are significantly contributing to your artistic displays, is there a larger percentage of Indigenous artists, or is it about what you'd expect? What's the take-up, I should say?
I think one of there's lots of different messages that the art exhibition is able to communicate to the public, and so I guess one of the interesting things about the exhibition is that people in prison whose, I guess, stories and lives are written for them, either by media and or the court in the process of criminalisation and entering the system. The exhibition allows people in prison to produce images and text and broadcast that out to the community. Often, like I said, it works the other way around. As consumers of mediated content created outside the prison, and one of the things I think that hits people when they go to these exhibitions is that it is a visual representation of the over-incarceration of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and that is one of the take-home messages. Because when you go into these exhibitions, you can feel that presence.
Hayley, I've looked at, as I've said, most of these exhibitions over the years. There's, in some works, a lot of anger, as one could anticipate. Is there some value you've seen in allowing that expression? And my next question is there any censorship of anything that's particularly angry?
Good question. There is censorship, and so we go through a process, as I'm sure people could appreciate, to make sure that there's no identifying information that might have an impact for victims of crime, or any artworks of particular concern around that. So the team do a very good job of making sure that the integrity of the exhibition is intact in that regard. In terms of the art and what's expressed, I think what we see through a whole range of art programs, and of course what you see here in the exhibition is a tiny proportion of the amount of art that goes on across the system, it's the conversations that happen around the art is also part of the magic of these sorts of initiatives. So, whilst we might see a particular artwork and what it represents, we've also got to hear or learn about or see for ourselves the conversations, what the artwork means about, I'm thinking of one in particular where the artwork was all about community, obligation back to community when this person was released. To be having those deep conversations and care and thought about what all that means is absolutely rehabilitative in that regard. And if I just pick up on your question about the over-representation, so we have about 23% of the prison population Aboriginal men and women. Over 50% of the artwork that's displayed has been done by Aboriginal prisoners, or I should say not just prisoners. This year the exhibition was also expanded to more broadly incorporate people involved in the criminal justice system. So we had some people who've been released, might be on home detention, could still participate. I think we had some family members who are supporting people who've been incarcerated. So we're sort of starting to think about art as expression of involvement with the criminal justice system as opposed to just, that identity as prisoner. And the over-representation is alarming. And in particular, you mentioned women. Women are the fastest growing prison population in Australia, in the country, and the fastest growing within that is Aboriginal women. And we should absolutely, as a community, be activated and alarmed about that. So, these sorts of things that continue to bring spotlight to that are really important.
Now, you used the word a minute ago about rehabilitative purposes. Something like half the prisoners in our 9 prisons tonight in South Australia have been there before. This is a general question, obviously, about rehabilitation, but obviously the idea of art is designed to be rehabilitative. What's your sense that an expansion of a kind of an artistic program like this might assist with bringing that, the reduced 10% by 2020, etc.? What's your feeling of that as a criminologist within the DCS?
We think this is one part. We don't pretend that art can in and of itself do all the things that we need to do, but we absolutely see this as part of all the ingredients that go into the melting pot, and we think we're doing something right. The national average of return to custody is about 50% of people will return within 2 years. here in South Australia, I think we're down to 36 around about, so we're well below the national average. We got set a target to reduce reoffending 10% by 2020, and we achieved that target. We exceeded that target, so we got a new target to reduce it by 20% by 2026, and so that's what we're on our pathway to do.
Cedric, I don't know whether you teach art. Is that part of your brief? Tell us about how that works and how rehabilitative that could be in a setting of people with lived experience of prison.
Yeah, I've got the opportunity to go in and to run some art workshops, and the ultimate aim was to have works ready for the exhibition that's going to be opening tonight. As we went in and run the workshops with the men, we taught them about stretching canvas, quality materials, mixing colour, life drawing, a whole range of negative space, mixing of colours like within the artwork and things like that, and also opportunities that as artists, if they pursue it as a career, that make they may be happily to be involved in the future once released. And as we went in and run the workshops, I got up, we'd done a presentation about myself because I know exactly what these men are feeling. I've been in the same situation as them. I grew up actually the same lifestyle as a lot of these men. And as we spoke, disconnection from culture was really relevant, and they wanted to learn more. Once you're amongst a lot of, because of the high number of Indigenous, or I should say Nungas instead of Indigenous, that means Indigenous people, a high number of them in there, then a lot of them are taken on languages from other different groups, so they're not speaking their own language. They're not hearing their own stories, if stories are being shared and things like that. They're not hearing stories from their ancestral lands. So their miwi is not fulfilled and not strong enough. And so it leads them down this path that then ultimately ends up then being incarcerated. And then once in there, there's if you don't have connection with your family, then you don't have any connection at all. If nobody is in there else that's from the same community as you can't really connect properly then. And as you can't connect properly, then what we would feel, your spirit is lost, and then you follow the paths down the wrong road. And so as we talked about that through there, as I talked about my own artwork, talking about them stories the old people had then shared with me, and as we then stopped and yarned, a lot of them jogged their memories and talked, well, I remember being told that story, I remember being told like that, and this is how I was told. Some of the elders that we spoke about, I knew some of these guys, because I'm actually from the same clan group as some of them, and it really brought that emiwi, made it stronger. And as I'm speaking in language and coming in every day, every morning, and I'm saying, nakari nragi, and they say, no, nakari nragi, it really made them feel heard and made them feel strong. And as they were depicting, we talked about what totems and things like that, talked about the stories that they're particularly responsible for, what they wanted to depict in the artwork. And you can see as they're sitting there creating it, you can see they were determined to incorporate that into the artwork. As we spoke about, then leading on into once released, and hopefully supporting them once released to then hopefully make it as something they might be interested in doing. and how would that look? And I'm happy to, I've said I'm happy to connect with them and to continue mentoring them then once that, And we spoke about, I suffered with alcoholism and drug abuse. I was once incarcerated as well. I know the feeling. When I was young growing up, I was made to feel like I'm never going to have a future. So I couldn't even spell my name until I was probably 25. It actually took my daughter to come home, and that's how I learned how to read, was actually a little book. She would sit down and she said, "Dad, I need to read the book." I couldn't say, "No, I can't read." So I sat there and said, "Daughter, you read that book to me." And that's actually how I learned how to read. And my wife, she because when you need to fill paperwork out and things like that, I couldn't spell my name. I was too ashamed to ask them for help. So I knew what a lot of these men were feeling and dealing with. And I told them, we deal with that all in our own different ways, but we should never be afraid to ask for help. And once we ask for that help, that we'll see good that comes with that once we then feel like we're being supported. And that's one thing a lot of people my age never felt. When I was at school, I never, never got the opportunity to be taught one-on-one because it was the mindset that we were never going to amount to anything. We were never going to achieve anything, And the basic jobs that we could do, it was jobs that you didn't need qualifications for. And I said, today's day and age, we can do it if we put our mind to it. Once we can put our mind to it, we can do it. And I have done it, I give it all away. It's been 11 years since I've drank, and I feel better, spiritually, physically, health-wise, and I feel a lot happier. And as I feel that, it's through art that it helped me heal. And it helped me heal because I've got so much trauma in my life. And that trauma will always carry with me, no matter what. Intergenerational trauma from what I've seen and grown up and witnessed, and it never leaves you. But I won't ever let it overpower me anymore. I'll always let it see me do good instead of walking along that rocky path. And now I come to my community and I see my people asking me, "How did you do that? How did you, when I walked in, knew one of the brothers, he said, "I remember when I used to drink with you. I remember how worrying you mean, like how silly he was. I remember back then." And I said, I woke up and I thought, no more that's going to be. And it's only because I had health issues related from it that I thought my children are too young to lose me, and I want to be there to be a grandfather. I want to see my children thrive. I want them to have a better life than I've had. And I want my whole family to have a better life than I did. And I want them to succeed in life. And I want to, my brothers were institutionalized. That's actually how I lost my brothers. They was institutionalized. None of them ever spent more than 2 weeks out of prison. And then when my oldest brother, that really broke my heart. And it was through art that he actually used to Google my name when Google was a thing. I don't know how he'd done it. But he used to Google me and he said, "Hey, brother, I seen how many zeros on that painting now, I want loan." And I said, "We don't get it just because it's online." But, we laughed and joked about it. But sadly, when I lost him, a bit of me was lost too. And it was him who also helped me on the healing journey too. And when I talk about that, I suppose you're probably the only one I'm talking about it, as I'm talking about it now, but I told my family, as well, life can be what we make it. But, you know, as we're making it into the future, we need to make ourselves proud first. Because, you know, when we're not happy and that, you know, we're covered with the cloud, and that cloud needs to disappear so that we can thrive in the future. And we need to thrive. And you know, we need to do better for ourselves. And when we're not doing that, we feel down and out, and we can't cope. We can't connect. We can't do none of that, you know. So we need to keep our spirit strong. And when you think about Ngāti culture, your miwi, all of you have got a miwi. It's what makes you the person that you are. But our miwi is what connects us, makes us belong, and gives us structure in our life. And that's one thing that when your miwi goes to sleep, it can be woken up, but it needs to be fulfilled with culture. It needs to be fulfilled with the knowledge. It needs to be filled with connection, belonging, and feeling. You can't see the miwi, you can only feel it. And it's the individual who needs to feel it. And so that's what I found whilst participating in the workshops, seeing their miwi feeling strong. And that's what made me feel proud. And I feel proud anytime I see any of my people feeling happy and strong is what makes me feel strong too.
Thank you, Cedric. That provides a wonderful segue for me to come back to Nicole, that heartfelt message about people who are leaving prison saying, I'm worthless, I have no future, I'm nothing. Nicole, broadening the debate, that must have been your experience and work skill. What can you say, or what do you say, and how do you engender that degree of strength and courage to overcome that anxiety?
Yeah, if you talk to anyone who's about to be released from prison, you feel the anxiety coming off them, that nervousness about getting out. It's pretty intense. That worry about how you're going to make it on the outside, where are you going to live, which is a really big issue at the moment and getting more challenging. But part of the Work Ready program is part of instilling that confidence. We bring people back into the prisons who have been released and doing really great things. We bring employers into the prison who, you know, we've got amazing employers in South Australia who employ people who've been in prison. Some employers will only take those people and, you know, they give people confidence. You know, great stories. There's a bakery in the prison you can work in, you can get your qualifications as a baker, huge skill shortage area, and we have Riviera Bakery in South Australia who will only take ex-offenders on and is a great employer. That's just one of many. But we try and do that and help people get those qualifications while in. So they're ready to go. We do a release plan, a transition plan out, so you know exactly what's going to happen. We literally take people to the bank on day one, get the account set up, off to Centrelink, get payments sorted out. We go and pick up food, clothes, the whole works. So, you know, whatever's required, we do it and try and ease that transition because it is quite terrifying for people coming out. I can't stress how the girls might be able to describe it. It's pretty awesomely stressful. Yeah.
Well, just looking at my clock, we want to finish in about 10 minutes. We're not going to have questions from the audience, but I do want to kind of throw it open now to say that for this last 10 minutes, if there's anything we haven't discussed yet and you'd like to say about the value of this program, about its longevity, about its funding, about its purpose, and about telling the public about it, in a very retributive, if you read the letters to the advertiser, environment, this program needs to be sold, it needs to be sold well. So let me open up to anyone who smiles at me and puts the microphone to their face to pick up this last question about the overall value of this program and what you'd like the policymakers, parliamentarians to see about this program going forward. I think I'll check Jeremy's smiling at me first, and then we'll go Fabian. Jeremy first. No, Fabian first.
I've taken a lot away from this whole experience. It's something that I will question on. People on remand, can't access your services, and I think that's something that really needs to be maybe shining a light on. A lot of females and men in particular are on remand. I think what the number was, over 60% of people that are incarcerated are actually on remand, and they can't actually access your services of work release ready. So that's something I think is, because me in particular, I was on remand my whole sentence.
Just Nicole, do you want to respond to that?
So I wasn't actually able to access any of those services and or housing. I was actually released on my own accord, free to the, so there was a lot more, you mentioned the stresses that when you're released on is 10 times fold when you don't really have those resources behind you, which I would have, which I'll probably speak to you afterwards, which I would have really appreciated on my way out.
Yeah, so just in response, very good point, and Corrections is well aware of this. So there is a fairly big population in the prisons who are waiting to be sentenced, and to date the program had only helped people who had been sentenced. So as of July this year, that's actually now changed, and we've now opened the program up to people on bail and remand, because we recognise that some people are in for quite a reasonable amount of time. And can do with that help earlier. So the program's now available for Aboriginal participants on remand and bail.
This panel has become a lot more lively. We've got a bit of problem solving out here. It's fantastic. Jeremy, over to you for a response.
Yeah, no, I was going to pick up on what Nicole was saying in your question to her about the pathway out, and I thought I'd share a story which is always... it's always sat with me. And it's a story told by Kent Morris, an Indigenous artist who runs an incredible organisation called The Torch in Victoria, alongside Victorian Corrections. We touched on a little bit here around the kind of, but I just want to acknowledge the powerful ritual and ceremony, punishment rituals involved in sending people to prison. So whether that's the rituals of arrest, of court, of sentencing, and then prison itself, and that as a process that fixes identities onto people, and thinking about what kind of powerful equivalent, these are kind of what status degradation ceremonies, and is there any equivalent elevation ceremonies at the back end, at release? Ken told me about so Ken goes into prisons, much like Cedric was talking about, goes in or sends people into the Victorian prison system, mentors and teaches art, although he, just like Cedric, went into prisons, thought he was going to just be teaching art, but actually what people were asking was like, who am I? Where am I from? Who are my people? What does my country look like? So, obviously he adapted. Now, he told me a story about a gentleman who was released from prison, and the stars somehow aligned because the exhibition opening to his annual exhibition was that night, and that person went from prison to an exhibition opening. And so if the public, the process around punishment rituals are about the kind of, like coming together to kind of condemn and punish someone, how could you bring a section of the public together to celebrate and elevate someone at the back end? And I thought, that story helped me kind of imagine some sort of reintegration and status elevation ritual. And anyway, I just thought it was a story that kind of helped me kind of conceive of something powerful that could happen at that point. It wouldn't surprise me if that person was the only person in Australia who'd been able to have that experience. Like I said, I think the stars really had to align, but it helped me imagine anyway.
You mentioned those rituals. Shad Maruna, you'd know that the criminologist talks about that importance of having some degree of recognition that you are finishing something and starting something else, transition to a new life, in a way that just doesn't put a bag in your hand and shown the door and you hope the taxi or Nicole is going to be outside. Let me put that question, this will be our last question, and I'm going to put Hayley on the spot here. Hayley, is there anything that you could think of that could be embraced by that level of recognition of the transition that we've talked about tonight, and how powerful that transition could be in the life of someone about to embark upon a whole new life?
I think discharge planning and release is the trickiest part of our business for sure. You know, the sorts of partnerships that Nicole's described, we have other incredible transitional release support services, partnerships with ORS, Offender Aid Rehabilitation Services, in Compro, have started a new program supporting Aboriginal prisoners on release, really intensive wraparound support. I think there's increasingly an acknowledgement that that is critical for success. But of course, even those things are compromised when someone's got nowhere to live. Or, you know, life is very complex, and increasingly so with some of those other. Housing upon release is a big issue. But in terms of, you know, these sorts of programs and initiatives and investment, you know, thinking of your earlier question, Rick, I think we have enjoyed very good support for these sorts of initiatives. You know, we had our minister come along and speak at the opening of the exhibition, the artworks last time, and I think will be arranged again, all get taken down from here, down and displayed at Parliament House. So we have a very good level of engagement and support for the value of these sorts of initiatives.
I hope the artists know that. They could always write something on their artwork and get right in the face of the Premier in relation to that. Friends, we really have run out of time tonight. This has been wonderful. Oh, Cedric, the last word? Okay, Cedric, actually a perfect person to have the last word. Away you go.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who helped contribute to putting the funding together and that for the workshops to happen. And I think there needs to be more support when they are leaving. Yes, there's a lot of issues around housing and all them kind of things, but I think arts have actually been underrated. And when you think about mental health and your miwi and all that aspects of anxiety and things like that, art is actually one of the most beneficial things people can do when they are readjusting to now life on the outside now. And I think art needs to, you know, there needs to be more funding allocated in order to form some support to keep them creative when they're on the outside, and what kind of pathways could happen, especially for our Nunga community members who are now having to adjust on the outside. A lot of them do, you know, struggle with their miwi and with their mental health and support and things like that. And art is what can bring them together. If there was a course or something that they could attend that has elements of woodwork or emu carving or even dancing, painting, all sorts of various different art that they would, you know, benefit from connecting with and keeping strong in culture on the outside. And I have supported a lot of that, and I continue to support it, because I feel as they're getting stronger, they would make all these deadly opportunities happen into the future. So thank you for allowing us to be a part of it, but also I hope that you continue to support it in the future as well.
Well, as it turns out, Cedric, you've actually summarised it far better than I could about the transformative power of the arts and the way in which this panel has explored that whole idea of emotional well-being, which emerges from that and hopefully leads to desistance from crime. Panel, this has been wonderful. Don't forget, as we leave tonight, you can always go through that top door and it'll take you to the exhibition, which will be open for till 8 p.m. So you've got about a half an hour to have a look at it on your way out. Once again, friends, would you join me in thanking our panel tonight?